After realizing the scale of the disaster at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, it became clear that humanity would be dealing with the consequences for many decades. Scientists had never before encountered such a technogenic release of radionuclides. Watch this video until the end and you will learn about all the government's plans, and we will also summarize what awaits the Chernobyl exclusion zone in the future. In the 1970s there was a boom in nuclear energy. Nuclear power was considered one of the safest and most promising. It was praised and promised a golden age. But in 1986 the accident at the Chernobyl nuclear plant showed the whole world that this gold comes with serious risks. The general euphoria faded, but today, more than 30 years later, global interest in peaceful nuclear energy has returned. Despite the colossal efforts of many countries to develop alternative energy projects, in recent years nuclear power plants have been attracting more and more attention from investors. With the current level of technology and constantly growing energy consumption, most countries simply have no cheap and efficient alternatives to nuclear energy. However, against the backdrop of this new wave of nuclear enthusiasm, the Chernobyl zone, like a black hole on the map of Europe, continues to drain money from Ukraine and other donor countries that help turn this giant graveyard of radioactive waste and billions buried underground into an environmentally safe facility. And for donor countries these expenses are not a mandatory rescue mission, but a vital necessity for the whole world. Another question is whether the people who will decide the future of the Chernobyl zone will have enough wisdom to make the right choice and avoid serious mistakes and miscalculations. So, one of the government's plans is to clean the territory of the Chernobyl zone from residual radioactive contamination. It is also planned to eliminate the enormous number of radioactive dumps that were created during the accident cleanup. Right now, the destroyed reactor unit is covered with a new sarcophagus, the so-called Shelter 2 object. This structure absorbs most of the radiation and will serve for 100 years. And within these next 100 years it is planned to completely dismantle the reactor and process all the radioactive elements that remain inside the fourth reactor unit. The nearby territory, including the city of Pripyat, will remain a closed zone for a very long time. But experts believe that the main territory farther from the power plant can be reclaimed. Land reclamation is a set of activities aimed at restoring the productivity and economic value of damaged land. In simple terms, reclamation is the cleaning of land after chemical or radioactive contamination. Technologies for reclamation have long been known worldwide, and many times the Ukrainian authorities have stated their readiness to invest significant funds into the Chernobyl zone to return it to agricultural or industrial use. For example, in Japan, near the Fukushima plant, they conducted land decontamination, a very complex and expensive process. To decontaminate 1 square meter, you need to remove, say, 10 centimeters of soil, which is around 100 kilograms per square meter. As a result, tons of radioactive soil were removed, initially stored somewhere, and then subjected to cleaning or destruction. The Japanese government estimated the cost of land decontamination near Fukushima at $10 billion. Ukraine does not have that kind of money, so most likely the Ukrainian government will gather funds from all countries interested in cleaning these lands. But behind all these large plans there are many problems, which we will talk about further. Many people are interested in what will happen to the city of Pripyat in the future. Several years ago, the first deputy head of the state agency for management of the exclusion zone, Dmitry Bobro, stated that the city needs to be dismantled. Officials argue that maintaining it as a monument is too expensive. To keep the building standing for several more decades, colossal sums would have to be invested in repairs. Currently, the buildings in Pripyat are at the mercy of the weather. In winter, water seeps into the cracks in the concrete, freezes, and destroys the foundations. If the buildings begin to collapse, radioactive dust carried by the wind may reach areas where people live and work. For example, a falling building could raise a cloud of radioactive dust, and the wind could carry it anywhere. A radioactive cloud may form, and with a northern wind it could reach Kiev, and with a southern wind it could reach Belarus, for example the city of Gomel. The concentration of radionuclides could be so high that evacuating some districts might become necessary. There was even a proposal to knock down the city with controlled explosions and rebury it. But this method cannot be used, because it would raise a huge amount of radioactive dust, just like if the buildings collapsed on their own. To prevent such a development, experts believe the best solution is a controlled demolition using special equipment. In their opinion, this process would be more manageable and safer than leaving the buildings as they are and waiting for them to fall on their own. If Pripyat begins to be demolished, tourism will suffer first, and in recent years tourism has been growing. In 2007 the computer game, Stalker, was released, which significantly increased the number of tourists visiting the Chernobyl exclusion zone. In 2009, Forbes magazine named the Chernobyl exclusion zone the most exotic place for tourism on Earth. Even foreigners began entering illegally. They brought special tools to overcome the fence around Pripyat and bypass the checkpoints. In 2014 a series called Chernobyl Exclusion Zone was released in Russia. This once again boosted tourism in the area. Today the ghost city is probably the main attraction of the Chernobyl zone. And if this city disappears, the tourists will disappear as well. But it must be acknowledged that if Pripyat is not demolished in the next 20 years, the city will collapse into ruins on its own. Therefore, if for some reason you have not yet been there but really want to, visit this place while you still have the chance to see everything with your own eyes and immerse yourself in the era of the radioactive apocalypse. Despite the fact that the damaged reactor is now covered with a protective arch, it still poses a threat. The old sarcophagus, built over the destroyed fourth reactor unit right after the accident, was essentially a giant concrete box. It was built in a rush. It took only 200 days to build the structure made of 400,000 cubic meters of concrete and 7,000 tons of metal. Nevertheless, for more than 30 years it held back the spread of radiation that was destroying it from the inside. Not long ago, the destruction of the old sarcophagus became obvious. In 2013 the roof panels of the turbine hull of the fourth reactor collapsed. The problem was fixed, but perhaps you have heard that the old sarcophagus, built in heroic haste, was not airtight. Inside the destroyed reactor there remain about 180 tons of fuel, which turned into solidified fuel-containing masses, causing radiation levels inside to reach thousands of Roentgens even today. The hermetic quality of the structure has always been poor. The total area of cracks in the roof and walls at the time of its completion measured thousands of square meters. After stabilization of the construction structures and repairs to the light roof in 2008, the situation improved, but not dramatically. The safe operational period of the newly installed metal structures of the shelter was 30 years, which has already long expired. In addition, in 2013 Chernobyl was threatened by flooding. In mid-April, the water level in the Pripyat River rose sharply. So as long as the damaged fourth block remains there, there will always be a risk of unexpected situations. To prevent all risks connected with the damaged reactor, it has to be dismantled step by step. This was partly the reason for constructing the enormous protective arch over the fourth unit. But even dismantling it is far from simple. First, there are many unstable structures which, if they collapse, could raise radioactive dust into the air. Second, there are still no technical solutions for how to remove the contents of the fourth block. The structural parts can be dismantled somehow, but what should be done with the fuel-containing masses? How do you cut these wastes? People cannot work there. Even in 100 years, the radiation level inside will barely decrease. There is plutonium, uranium-235, radionuclides emitting neutrons, with half-lives of more than 2,000 years. During the cleanup of the accident, robots were used in the most contaminated areas. But Swedish and Japanese robots could not cope. In that radioactive environment their batteries failed and their electronics burned out. Moreover, the fourth reactor unit is not a flat area. Inside there are many rooms, thick 15-centimeter doors. Everything can be sealed shut and it is unclear how to access it. Besides the large amount of fuel, there is also large amounts of other waste inside, for example about 1,500 tons of graphite, and what melted during the accident has already hardened. There are also many pipelines and equipment, and all of it is radioactive, just like the old sarcophagus itself. To clean the territory of the Chernobyl plant will require many years, possibly all 100. So the new protective arch is only the beginning of the road, and it is unknown when everything will be completed. International experts believe that Ukraine needs to start resolving, at an international level, the issue of transforming the Chernobyl site and securing funding for this project. Otherwise, the zone will remain a radioactive graveyard for another century, preventing people from living peacefully, and a green meadow in this beautiful region will be seen only in the dreams of our great-grandchildren. Summing up, we can say that in 100 years the Chernobyl exclusion zone may become an environmentally clean and safe area, where the frightening warning signs, fences, and checkpoints will disappear forever. Perhaps the city of Pripyat will be revived, and relatives of those who lived there before the accident will settle there again. Stop! What revival, what people? How could we forget that a radioactive waste storage facility designed for 100 years is being launched on the industrial site near the power plant? What will happen to the waste in 100 years? Will it also be destroyed, or will it remain there forever? And what kind of waste will be stored there? How can we even talk about revival plans and green meadows when such a question remains open? We will try to answer these questions in one of the future videos if you support this one with your likes and comments.